BCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at bcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us today on Crosstalk here on VCY America. You know, one of the key buzzwords that we have been hearing from the LGBT advocacy groups, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender advocacy groups, is the buzzword of tolerance. You know, we hear it all the time. Tolerance, tolerance, tolerance. We hear and have heard those chants, 2, 4, 6, 8, we don't need your Christian hate. Yet, folks, as they continue to scream this mantra of tolerance and as they decry those who will not be accepting of their lifestyle choices, yet they themselves are intolerant of those who take an opposing viewpoint. As a matter of fact, we are seeing an organization that within the last 24 hours has taken a stand to say we are not going to allow open homosexuals to serve within our private organization. And now we are seeing the Boy Scouts who have taken this principled stand coming under attack. They are being bullied by those who are intolerant of their position. Tolerance, 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 we keep hearing. Yet those who are screaming tolerance the most practice it the least. We're going to go over some background here for some months now that there has been there's been a rumor saying, the Boy Scouts are going to change their policy about allowing open homosexuals to serve in their scouts. Let's just quickly review a little bit about the Boy Scouts. Looking at their website, the Boy Scouts of America, one of the nation's largest, most prominent values-based youth development organizations, the Boy Scouts of America provides a program for young people that builds character, trains them in the responsibilities of participating citizenship, and develops personal fitness. Under faith traditions, they say that young people need faith. There's an abundant evidence that children benefit from the moral compass provided by religious tradition. We acknowledge that faith can become an important part of a child's identity, they state. Each of the major faith breeds hope, optimism, compassion, and a belief in a better tomorrow. Scouting encourages each young person to begin a spiritual journey through the practice of his or her faith tradition. One of the key tenets of Scouting is duty to God. They talk about the oath of the Scouts, which is this: on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And this has outraged the LGBT advocacy groups. By the way, the Scout law is that a Scout is to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, as he is to be reverent toward God, faithful in his religious duties, while respecting the beliefs of others. The Boy Scouts have been, they launched a committee to study this issue close to 2 years ago. And because so many rumors were being circulated that the Boy Scouts were going to be changing their policy to allow open homosexuality in the Scouting organization, they issued a statement, first of all, on June 7th, 2012, last month, that said this: contrary to media reports, the Boy Scouts of America has no plans to change its membership policy. The introduction of a resolution does not indicate the organization's reviewing a policy or signal a change in direction. In April, a single individual submitted a resolution asking the Boy Scouts to consider amending its policy and not granting membership to open or avowed homosexuals. The resolution asked that the policy be amended to allow local units to determine their own standards. Scouting's voting members may submit resolutions which represents that individual's personal viewpoint for consideration at the National Annual Business Meeting. As directed by its bylaws on May 31st, the B.S.A. assigned the resolution to a committee that will consider the resolution and present a report to the National Executive Board. Resolutions and petitions on this subject are not unique and go back as far as 2000 when the U.S. Supreme Court reviewed this matter and have been widely covered in the media since that time. In addition, in the past, individuals have submitted resolutions asking the B.S.A. to reaffirm its current policy. Those resolutions were handled in the same manner. The introduction of a resolution is procedural, handled with respect, but does not indicate the organization is reviewing a policy or signal a change in direction. Completely unrelated to the introduction of this resolution, on May 27th, an online petition asked the Boy Scouts to meet with a spokesperson from the group circulating a petition and accept signatures generated from the online petition, which asked the B.S.A. to change its policy. While it was not on the Boy Scouts' national business meeting agenda, out of courtesy and respect for differing viewpoints, the B.S.A. accepted the petition during a private meeting. This meeting to accept the petition was not related in any way to the introduction of the resolution. The B.S.A. policy is, while the B.S.A. does not proactively inquire about sexual orientation of employees, volunteers, or members, we do not grant membership to individuals who are open or avowed homosexuals or who engage in behavior that would become a distraction to the mission of the B.S.A. Scouting believes same-sex attraction should be introduced and discussed outside of its program with parents, caregivers, or spiritual advisors at the appropriate time and in the right setting. The vast majority of parents we serve value this right and do not sign their children up for scouting for it, that is the scouting, to introduce or discuss in any way these topics. The B.S.A. is a voluntary, mark that, folks, voluntary private organization that sets policies that are best for the organization. The B.S.A. welcomes all who share its beliefs, but does not criticize or condemn those who wish to follow a different path. Well, that was issued on June the 7th. June the 13th, it was reported through the Huffington Post and other news-related entities that a high-profile member of the Boy Scouts of America's governing board said he does not support the Scouts' policy of excluding gays and would work from within to seek a change. Who is this? Well, it is James Turley, who is the CEO of Ernst & Young, whose accounting firm has welcomed gays and lesbians in its own workforce, became the first member of the Scouts Executive Board known to publicly disapprove of the policy. He said, quote, "I support the meaningful work of the Boy Scouts in preparing young people for adventure, leadership, learning, and service. However, the membership policy is not one I would personally endorse." He said, "As I have done in leading Ernst & Young to become a most inclusive organization, I intend to continue the work from within the Boy Scouts of America board to actively encourage dialogue and sustainable progress," Turley said. Well, the Boy Scouts responded with a joint statement from their two top leaders, their national president and chief Scout executive, who said this: "The Boy Scouts of America respects the opinions of our board members and are thankful for their leadership. While we have supporters and board members with different viewpoints on this issue and who may choose a different direction for their organizations, we believe that good people can personally disagree on this topic and will work together." Well, Ernst & Young, in another statement here that was put out by GLAAD, said this, that Ernst & Young is proud to have such a strong record in LGBT inclusiveness as CEO. Turley says, "I know that having an inclusive culture produces the best results, is the right thing for our people, and makes us a better organization. My experience has led me to believe that an inclusive environment is important throughout our society, and I'm proud to be a leader on this issue." And then went on to make his comment about the Boy Scouts and how he would try to work from within. Meanwhile, a second individual, Randall Stevenson, CEO of AT&T, and an executive board member with the Boy Scouts of America, wants the nonprofit to lift its ban against gay members and leaders. The Dallas Voice reports that Stevenson is joining Ernst & Young CEO James Turley in opposing the controversial policy, reports the Wisconsin Gazette. And they also quote Chad Griffin of the Human Rights Campaign, which touts itself as being the nation's largest LGBT civil rights group, who said this: "This is a missed opportunity of colossal proportions. With the country moving toward inclusion, the leaders of the Boy Scouts of America have instead sent the message to young people that only some of them are valued. These adults could have taught the next generation of leaders the value of respect, yet they've chosen to teach division and, here's the buzzword, the value of to teach division and intolerance. Intolerance. Isn't Mr. Griffin himself being intolerant even by saying what he is saying? He said the Boy Scouts of America's decision to continue to exclude gays from membership is extremely disappointing and sends the message that gay youth are not fit to serve God and country, said R. Clark Cooper, executive director of the Log Cabin Republicans. Well, yesterday the Boy Scouts did come out and reaffirm their position on this matter. July 17th. Came forth their official statement. I'd like to read to you. The headline of their press release says this: after 2-year evaluation, Boy Scouts of America affirms membership standards and announces no change in policy. After careful consideration of a resolution asking the Boy Scouts of America to reconsider its long-standing membership standards policy, today the organization affirmed its current policy, stating that it remains in the best interest of Scouting and that there will be no further action taken on the resolution. This discussion follows a nearly 2-year-long examination started in 2010 of the policy commissioned by the Chief Scout Executive and National President. Under their leadership, the B.S.A. convened a special committee of volunteers and professional leaders to evaluate whether the policy continued to be in the best interest of the organization. The committee included a diversity of perspectives and opinions. The review included forthright and candid conversations and extensive research and evaluations both from within Scouting and from outside the organization. The committee's working conclusion is that the policy reflects the belief and perspective of the B.S.A.'s members, therefore allowing Scouting to remain focused on its mission and the work it is doing to serve more youth. The vast majority of the parents of the youth we serve value their right to address issues of same-sex orientation within their family, with spiritual advisors, and at the appropriate time and in the right setting, said Bob Mazuka, Chief Scout Executive of Boy Scouts of America. He said, while a majority of our membership agrees with our policy, we fully understand that no single policy will accommodate the many diverse views among our membership or society. Following the recommendation to affirm the Boy Scout of America's membership policy, the Executive Committee of the B.S.A. National Executive Board released the following statement, quote, Scouting believes that good people can personally disagree on this topic and still work together to achieve the life-changing benefits to youth through Scouting. While not all board members may personally agree with this policy and may choose a different direction for their own organizations, B.S.A. leadership agrees that this is the best policy for the organization and supports it for the B.S.A. Resolutions asking the B.S.A. both to affirm and reconsider this policy have been raised through the years. With any resolution, regardless of subject, the B.S.A. may or may not refer to committee for review or may immediately determine no further action is necessary. So they put the matter to rest here yesterday with their statement that they are not going to provide for open homosexuals to serve in the Scouts. But the bullying continues. We'll have more in just 1 minute. This is Crosstalk on VCY America.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist and president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, are there any new animal abilities that are inspiring engineering design?
Yes, there are, Chris. Whenever an animal does something remarkable, engineers try to understand it and copy it. Recently, an octopus was noted walking along the sea floor using 2 of its legs while tucking the other 6 in around his body. But the octopus has no rigid skeleton and can't support itself on 2 legs. The octopus walking movement depends on certain muscles that react with one another. This allows it to pull itself along. Engineers are trying to see if this can lead to a new design of robots. But if they do devise such a robot, they'll have proven that the octopus needed an engineer and a designer too. That designer we read about when we go back to Genesis.
To find out more about creation science, Visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
Well, the Boy Scouts continue to stand their ground here on this matter about open homosexuality within the service of the Scouts. As the Washington Times put it, an 11-member special committee formed discreetly by top Scout leaders in 2010 came to the conclusion that this policy is absolutely the best policy for the Boy Scouts. That was said by their organization's national spokesman, Darren Smith. He said that the committee, composed of professional Scout executives and adult volunteers, was unanimous in their conclusion, preserving a longstanding policy that was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2000, but has remained controversial ever since. As a result of this committee's decision, the Scouts National Executive Board will take no further action on this recently submitted resolution asking for reconsideration of their membership policy. Two board members, as I mentioned, Tully from Ernst & Young and then also Randall Stevenson of AT&T, spoke out in against the position of the scouting program. As a matter of fact, AT&T CEO Randall Stevenson, we understand, or according to the Washington Times, is on track to become president of the Scouts National Board in 2014 and likely will face continued pressure from gay rights groups to try and end the exclusion policy. We did see the one board member saying that he would seek to work from within. Meanwhile, there's an ongoing protest campaign that involves Jennifer Tyrell. She's from Ohio, the mother of a 7-year-old Cub Scout who was ousted as a Scout den mom because she is a lesbian. One day after the Scouts announced this committee and their resolution pertaining to this, Jennifer Tyrell today delivered 300,000 petitions to the national headquarters. Eagle Scout Zach Walls, co-founder of Scouts for Equality, calls for a B.S.A. to fully disclose members of the secret committee and to release the committee's report to the public. I can only imagine if they release the names of this committee and organizations, what actions will be taken. Tyrell said this movement doesn't stop because 11 anonymous men behind closed doors made a decision to keep discrimination in place. Walls also announced today that he is launching a new petition asking the board of the Boy Scouts to vote on the resolution originally scheduled to be considered in May of 2013. The statement that was made by GLAAD, the GLAAD president, that is the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAAD, Herndon Gradick, said the real people impacted by this ban are gay young adults who are forced to hide who they are, as well as the children of gay parents who are denied an opportunity to participate in their children's lives. By standing behind the ban, the Boy Scouts of America are contributing to a climate that promotes the bullying of gay young people and putting parents in a place where they are forced to explain to their children why some scouts are hardworking scout leaders are not welcomed in the organization. Discrimination is not a value that should be associated with scouting, said the GLAAD president, Herndon Gradick. Well, there are groups that are jumping on board here in criticism of the Boy Scouts, and let's use their terminology, folks. They are bullying the Boy Scouts. In speaking such vitriol against the Boy Scouts, it is bullying the Boy Scouts that they are doing right now. You see, to say that you disagree with the sin of homosexuality, you're saying to be a bully, to be hate speech. Well, folks, that's exactly what they are doing. Here they tout, and I want to re-quote this statement here. When we have the Human Rights Campaign say this, that these adults could have taught the next generation leaders the value of respect, yet they've chosen to teach division and intolerance. His statement alone is one of intolerance. Well, jumping on board of this matter as well came a press release today from an atheist organization, the Military Association of Atheist and Free Thinkers. They're saying, hey, the kettle's all stirred up. Let's us jump into this thing, too. They say they are calling the Boy Scouts of America, they said, holds a congressional charter while discriminating against atheists. The B.S.A. ejects openly atheist members and leaders, even those that have reached the highest ranks of the organization. All branches of the military issue a promotion for Eagle Scouts, the highest Boy Scout rank. This constitutes discrimination in hiring by the military, as well as government approval of the Boy Scouts' discriminatory policies. There are also various laws and regulations directing special access to the resources for Boy Scout troops and gatherings. The values, community, and service so fundamental to the B.S.A. would provide an even greater service to the nation if they would promote respect for all beliefs, including atheism. So atheist groups jumping on board here as well. Well, Family Research Council, Rob Schwartzwalder, Senior Vice President, said he believes allowing homosexuals within B.S.A. would fundamentally change the character of the organization, noting that homosexual activists and others have been placing tremendous pressure on the B.S.A. to change their policy, but the group has decided not to give in to those requests. He said, quote, they deserve a major pat on the back. They've defied the winds of political correctness and have said no to a culture that wants to accept as normative a pattern of sexual behavior which clearly violates God's intended design for men and women. Also, Concerned Women for America's president, Penny Nance, said that her group strongly supports the rights of the Boy Scouts of America to set policy for their organization. They've made the determination that it's best for their organization for the kids involved to exclude homosexual leaders, and we believe they have the legal right and the moral right to make that decision, she said. There's also a column, blog by Michael Minkoff, put in the Political Outcast blog. Said one has to wonder how homosexuals and their social crusaders justify this intense desire to pressure voluntary private organizations into endorsing the normalcy of homosexual behavior. No one is forcing anyone to join the Boy Scouts, and for all of the vitriol that's being leveled against them, the B.S.A. has a reasonable defense for its policy. They claim that membership of openly homosexual scouts or leaders would be a distraction to the mission of the B.S.A., and there's no doubt that it would be. Girls aren't allowed to be Boy Scouts either. Allowing sexual distractions of any kind is not conducive to the obvious purposes of the Scouts. But when girls weren't allowed into the Boy Scouts, do you know what they did? They made a similar organization just for girls. If it's so important for homosexual boys to go camping with their peers, perhaps they should just start the Gay Scouts of America, he says. They want to celebrate diversity while at the same time lobbying for a uniform moral code that normalizes their behavior. And if you don't like it, they are more than willing to use social pressure to shame you into accepting their choices. And if that doesn't work, they'll just legislate their morality, creating hate speech and anti-discrimination laws to silence their opposition. End of quote. Well, folks, there are campaigns that are going on right now within the last 24 hours where it's really been heightened for people contacting the Boy Scouts to chastise them for coming out with such a statement. Thousands of petitions delivered to them today to overturn their position. I'm going to provide you a contact for the Boy Scouts where you can let your views be heard. I'm going to provide you a mailing address, a telephone number, and an email address for you to jot down. The Chief Scout Executive is Robert Mazzucca. That's Mazzucca. Robert Mazzucca. He's a Chief Scout Executive, Boy Scouts of America. The address, 1325 West Walnut Hill Lane, Irving, Texas, 75015. That's Robert Mazzucca, Mazzucca, Chief Scout Executive, Boy Scouts of America, 1325 West Walnut Hill Lane, Irving, Texas, zip code 75015. If you'd like to contact this national organization, you can do so at this telephone number, 972-580-2000. 972-580-2000. and to send an email to the organization to let them know your views on this issue. They have taken a stand saying, no, we are not going to allow open homosexuals to serve in the Scouts. Their email address is PR, standing for public relations, PR@scouting.org. That's PR@scouting.org. Today we're going to open the phone lines here at Crosstalk to get your perspective on this issue. Some of you have been in Scouts. Some of you are serving as den leaders in some aspect. Our telephone number here, 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Do you see a double standard here? Those who are decrying right now, the Scouts are intolerant. They're intolerant. They're intolerant. They need to change. While they themselves are being intolerant? Your reaction to the story here today. But I would encourage you to contact the Boy Scouts of America because they are getting huge press today within the last 24 hours on this very matter. Petitions that have been dropped off for them to change. 2 board members now seeking to work from within to change the policy of Boy Scouts of America. And they came out yesterday with their policy saying that, no, they are going to keep things just like they have been. So our phone number today to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. And for you to contact the Boy Scouts, they're hearing from many of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender groups. They are hearing from national atheist organizations. Are they hearing from you? Their number is 972-580-2000. That's 972-580-2000. And their email address is PR@scouting.org. That's PR@scouting.org. Let's go to the phone lines. We have Mike calling from Bayview. You're on the air, Mike.
Yeah, hi, Jim. I just wanted to say I was a Cub Scout years and years, 45 years ago, and I believe they still stand for, and they're going to stand for, and I pat them on the back for what they're doing. Like you said a few minutes ago, if the gays and lesbians want to start their own gay and lesbian Scouts, they're more than welcome. Their whole agenda is to make confusion, and continually, just like the Scott Walker thing. And I'll tell you what, as soon as I hang up from you, I'm going to call the Boy Scouts and tell them I'm proud that I was part of the team a long time ago, and we've got to put our foot down. And if we start there, maybe it'll roll down the hill, and maybe some other people will stand up for what's actually right in this world instead of wrong.
Mike, thanks for your thoughts here today.
God bless you, Jim. Have a good day.
Bye-bye now. And that's what the one writer that I quoted said, then start the Gay Scouts of America. Don't force your positions on our private organization in that regard. As a matter of fact, this is the MO, the method in which they have been utilizing to get at businesses across the nation. So they go to one photographer saying, we want you to take our same-sex commitment ceremony. Photographer says, no, but here's the names of others that you may contact. Sorry, that's not good enough. We're going to file action against you. Here, let's go to this Christian baker to have them make the cake for our same-sex wedding or commitment ceremony. The baker says no, but there are other bakers you can choose from. Sorry, we're going to take you to task because you're refusing to follow us. You're being intolerant of us. Folks, it's only going to get worse. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
The Bible tells us that no man knows the day or the hour of Christ's return, but we are told to be ready, to look for that blessed hope, and to occupy until he comes. The Bible characterizes what the last times would be like, and observing world conditions today, we know the Lord could return at any time. When Jesus' disciples asked, "What will be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" Jesus carefully explained what the world would be like. In the book, 40 Irrefutable Signs of the Last Generation, author Noah Hutchings takes a thought-provoking look at these signs of the last generation and the importance of being ready for the Lord's return. This book is the size of a workbook and features over 200 pages presenting 40 irrefutable signs of the last generation. One copy of this book is available for a donation of $20, and 2 copies are available for a donation of $35. To make your donation to VCY America, call 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
Lesbian and gay activist organizations and individuals are launching intolerance campaigns against the Boy Scouts, petition drives, contacts saying, Boy Scouts, you better change, you better allow this vote to go forward and change your policies. And in essence, folks, they are being very intolerant and are, using their term, bullying the Boy Scouts in that regard. The Boy Scouts have said, no, we're not going to change our policy. The American Family Association is encouraging people all across this nation to contact the Boy Scouts to thank them for their stand. If you'd like to contact the Boy Scouts with your thoughts, you can do so at this number, 972-580-2000. 972-580-2000. Their email address, pr@scouting.org. To the state of Tennessee. Sean, go ahead. You're on the air.
Well, I just want to be an encouragement to the Cubs, or the Boy Scouts. Well, both of them, really. I was in that a long time ago as a youngster, very young child. I wasn't in there but for a very brief time, but I applaud what they're doing, and I think they should keep up standing their ground. And I'm going to speak even for most of the Christians that feel like they're voiceless, because I sure know I'm not, and I will stand my ground as a Christian and tell anybody who wants to keep doing this and imposing their agenda on people, they need to stop, because, there is a double standard, it seems like, going on here. And these people are pretty much just flat out, simply put, they're hypocrites. That's all there is to it. They're trying to push their agenda on everybody else, and we don't have to tolerate it any more than they tolerate us.
Sean, thanks for your views here today.
Bye.
Bye-bye. To Racine and Kara, you're on the air.
Yes. I just want to say what's really at the heart of this issue is that children are safe. If open homosexuals are allowed in, what is the guarantee that those children will be safe? Now they'll say, well, we'll have homosexuals that don't rape other children. Well, look at the lawsuits with Sandusky, the Catholic Church. Look at the in our little community, he wasn't allowed into the school, but there was a man that just forced his way into Red Apple School and raped a little 6-year-old in the bathroom. And how do you look at those parents and justify that if you would openly allow homosexuals into a setting like that? And I really think that if they allow that, if the Boy Scouts allow that, that is the end of the Boy Scouts, because parents' number one concern is that their sons are safe in that type of a setting, and I sure wouldn't want my son into a setting where there's homosexuals, because I just feel like they're there not because they want to do a good thing. They could be there because they're looking for an alternative, and it's just a way to break the Scouts. And I really think you're on the right track with this issue. They can form their own organization, whether they have to ruin the Boy Scouts.
Thank you for your thoughts here today, Kara. To Tom in Mitchell, South Dakota, you're on the air, Tom.
Yes, I'm a former first-class scout, and it's amazing. The other day, I am 63 years old, and the other day I was able to trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. After all of these years, I can still recite all of that. Now, I have a couple thoughts that I'd like to throw out there. One is, why do they want to get into the Boy Scouts? Because they don't want to go through the effort that the Scouts did originally to organize something that's good for the children. They want to jump on the effort and the work of other people, take advantage of their labors, and like somebody said, well, start your own organization. Well, that's too much work. Let's just, try to get somebody else's. And an interesting thought is, why don't people want this type of activity in the Boy Scouts? Could it be because of the dismal record of the homosexual and gay community in all aspects of life? Come on, folks out there who are listening, This is more than that. They're trying to help us endure something that is failing miserably on all levels of a relationship. Physically, emotionally, mentally, health-wise, every one of those areas, you cannot pick out one where there's a success in the gay and homosexual lifestyle. Yet there's one thing good about the whole thing. God loves every one of them, and so do I.
And God has sent His Son, the Lord Jesus, to die for the sins of the world. And that includes the sin of homosexuality as well. That's
right. And He said, if you know the truth, it will set you free. Contrary to what some of those folks want to say, hey, there's a lot of them who have been set free, and you ask them, they'll never want to go back to that way of life again. Praise God.
Tom, thanks for your call.
You bet. Bye.
800-733-9829 to Fond du Lac. Mark, you're on the air.
Hi, I'd just like to say I'm in support of the Boy Scouts of America and their decision, and I hope they don't falter and give in to these gay and lesbian activists that are promoting their agenda. I'm a den leader for our Cub Scouts in the area, and it just strikes me as what sort of a message would we be sending or giving to our kids? They would probably have to rewrite the Scout handbook if something like that was passed, because there's a lot of very good principles about duty to God and country, scoutsmanship, boys in a group together, collectively working together. I just would like to say I hope they stand, and I pray for them, and I hope they resist completely and don't allow this to occur.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Mark. By the way, folks, again, some 300, I should say reportedly 300,000 petitions sent to the Boy Scouts, delivered to the Boy Scouts today by a den mother who revealed that she was a lesbian and as a result was dismissed from her den mother responsibilities, that they would not allow a lesbian den mother to host a pack at her home or whatever location was designated. But 300,000 petitions delivered to the Boy Scouts Association. Have you contacted the Boy Scouts with your views on this? AFA is saying, folks, would you contact them to say thank you for holding the line? The number to call is 972, area code 972-580-2000. 972-580-2000. Their email address, pr@scouting.org. PR, standing for public relations, PR@scouting.org. Let's go next to Shawano, Wisconsin. And Brian, you're on the air.
Hello, Jim, and just God bless you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ for the full ministry at BCY. Being a former Boy Scout, I am behind this 100%, and I am going to follow through the contact. Now, a couple of years ago, when they had some controversy going on, the Boy Scouts always have a food drive. They drop off a bag one Saturday and pick it up the next. Now, I told them when they picked it up how proud I was of the Boy Scouts being a Christian. Now, we can take that and be very generous with our food donations. We can put some tracts there, and we can personally thank them and leave a note how we are behind them in this movement when they come and do their drive.
Thank you, Brian, for your thoughts here today.
Thanks.
Dorothy in Olney, Illinois, you're on the air. Hello, Dorothy.
Hello?
You're on the air.
Oh, I wanted to say our country is in such bad shape with all the things that's been happening to it, and most Christians will say it's because God is angry with us. And God also said that it was abomination unto Him for these people to be like they are. And so I think by the Boy Scouts keeping themselves pure, regular men is the thing to do. And if more people would do that and let these homosexuals stay out there on their own, they can turn themselves over to God and change their ways. But what we're doing by keeping the Boy Scouts with no homosexuals in it is the best thing in the world to do. If we want God to bless this country, we better turn back to God.
Thank you for your thoughts, Dorothy. To South Dakota, Thomas, you're on the air.
Hi. I just thought it was interesting. Earlier there was a caller who said, that it was a danger to have homosexuals in the Boy Scouts for the kids. But it's not homosexuals exclusively who rape little kids. It's pedophiles, and pedophiles come in all shapes and sizes. So while I don't condone a homosexual lifestyle choice, I think it's good to note, that it's more than that. Kids aren't safe in some of our churches today.
I would like to draw attention to a study. This was printed in 2006 thank you for the call, from the Family Research Institute. And they pointed out that study after nationwide study yielded estimates of male homosexuality that range between 1 and 3% as far as being our nation's population. Now, yesterday there was a story that came out that a lot of people believe that number, their perception is that there must be 25% homosexual, but they report study after study showed that 1 to 3%, the proportion of lesbians in these studies is almost always lower, usually about half that of homosexuals. So overall, perhaps 2% of adults regularly indulge in homosexuality. Yet, according to the study, they account for between 20 and 40% of all molestations of children. If 2% of the population, the report says, is responsible for 20 to 40% of something as socially and personally troubling as child molestation, something must be desperately wrong with that 2%. He says not every homosexual is a child molester, but enough gays do molest children so that the risk of a homosexual molesting a child is 10 to 20 times greater than that of a heterosexual. So that, in response to your question, this is a study report by Dr. Paul Cameron on child molestation and homosexuality, and it's much more extensive. I think it's about 7 pages long here that I shared, and matter of fact, I only shared a couple paragraphs from it as far as some of the conclusions there, so that's something important to take into account as well. Your reaction to the Boy Scouts position, our number here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Terry, you're next. Go ahead.
Yes. I was listening to your program traveling through Wisconsin. I live in Northwest Indiana. My wife and I originally left the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America after membership of 56 years in the congregation in Northwest Indiana for myself and some 45 for my wife because of their decision in 2009 to allow homosexuals in their pulpit, which was kind of all beliefs and upbringings. And what's concerned me about this process is the devastation that what I call so few giving so much for so many giving so much for so few. They're foisting their ideas and forcing themselves in, and great amounts of damage to the existing congregations for the ELCA and for those of us who couldn't accept this kind of a movement. And to no value, none whatsoever. No good has come of this in any way, shape, or form, and it's just ongoing devastation. And it seems like if their cause is so just and so right, why is it that all they leave in their wake is this type of devastation?
Good thoughts. Thank you, Terry. We've got a break upon us. We'll be back in just 1 minute with more of your calls here at Crosstalk. 800-733-9829. We'll be right back.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewweekend.com. Today is number 18 in our list of 20 characteristics of false teachers embraced by the false church. Number 18, false teachers, I believe, are part of God's judgment on a people and a nation. I think we can see that in 1 Kings chapter 22, 21 through 23, where we read, Then a spirit, which many believe, by the way, this spirit was Satan himself. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. This is speaking of King Ahab and his 400 false prophets. The Lord said to him, In what way? So he, this spirit, or what I believe was Satan, said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And the Lord said, you shall persuade him, and you shall also prevail. Go out and do so. Therefore, look, the Lord has put a lying spirit in all of these prophets of yours, and the Lord hath declared disaster against you. We see 400 false prophets demonically controlled as what? Part of God's judgment on that nation.
You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America as we're talking about the Boy Scouts who are standing their ground, yesterday releasing their statement that they are not changing their policy as to who is able to serve as scout leaders. They are not going to allow for open homosexuals to serve in their ranks. The point of contact that you can make with the Boy Scouts of America, their number 972-580-2000. 972-580-2000, and their email address is pr@scouting.org. Getting your thoughts on it today. Let's go next to Diana from New Lisbon. You're on the air.
Hi, I'm calling in to say that I would like to support the Boy Scouts 100%. I used to be a den mother in Upper Michigan when I lived up there, and I just believe in somebody taking a stand these days against all this bullying. It's just terrible. You know, Satan never builds anything himself. He just tears down what God has built. It's all started back in the Garden of Eden, and it's been going on ever since.
Thanks for your thoughts here, Diana.
Okay.
To Brian in Alabama, you're on the air.
I'm wanted to call in support of the Boy Scouts, and I appreciate the stand that they're taking. And I appreciate them wanting to not change their resolution there and not change their policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Bill in Minnesota, you're on the air.
Yes, I've been in scouting for 50 years, Scoutmaster, Cubmaster. I want to thank you for putting on this program today in support of the Boy Scouts.
Well, thank you, Bill. I brought it to the attention of our listeners today because they are taking a lot of heat from those who are promoting a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender activist agenda to bully them to change their policy. And I believe the voices of Christians all across this nation need to be heard by the Boy Scouts as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Let's go next to Erica from Minnesota. You're on the air, Erica.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I don't agree with this, and I think, who cares? Who cares? I would be more worried about sending my children to Sunday school.
Well, you asked the question, who cares? There's a lot of parents who care, and a lot of parents who have contacted the Scouts saying, don't change your policy. These are issues, if we want to, we will address those issues in our home, not in the Scouting organization.
Address what issues in your home?
I'm sorry?
Address what issues in your home?
Address the issues of same-sex matters that are going on. That's a matter, if parents are wishing to talk about it.
Just because someone's homosexual doesn't mean that they have to talk about it, but they have to bring it into it. It doesn't mean that's going to affect how they lead people.
Oh, it certainly does affect their worldview and certainly impacts their policies as well.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that it impacts negatively.
When we violate our bodies, Erica, which the Scouts are designed to uphold, that is something that is going to impact them. Thank you for your call. To Tom in Spring Valley, Minnesota, you're on the air.
Is that me?
Yes, that's you, Tom.
Okay. One of the issues that I have, and I've been very disappointed with Christians, and I don't know, I haven't heard the official Scout reason for not changing their policy, but we had 6 born-again Christians running for president in the Republican Party. Each one was asked specifically why they opposed homosexual marriage, and not a one of them said because it's a sin, because God says it's a sin. Every one of them said because historically we don't have. And if that's the Boy Scout stand, historically we haven't had homosexual marriage, but historically we've only had heterosexual marriage. We're going to lose the battle because that's not a reason to oppose it. The only reason homosexual marriage is wrong is because God says it's wrong, and God made the rules. He made us. And why doesn't a Christian have the courage to stand up for Jesus Christ? I'm so tired of it.
Thank you, Tom, for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Darlene in Arena, you're on the air.
I stand with the Boy Scouts. They ought to stand strong in what they're doing. I was a den mother at one time, a long time ago, and I believe that they should stick with what they're doing.
Okay, thank you, Darlene. And to Christine, Racine, Wisconsin.
Boy, do I ever stand with that gentleman. The Christians are not, and the Boy Scouts are standing up for it. But you're right; he's right. That we will fall because of not standing on God's word and what's right and wrong. We are not the conscience of a nation anymore. We are not the conscience of much of anything. And I applaud the Boy Scouts.
Thank you, Christine, for your call here today. Here again, I want to provide for you the contact of the Boy Scouts. As a result of their decision, they are being bombarded with petitions and points of contact criticizing their decision. And as AFA has said, it's time we thank them for taking this principled stand and that they hear the voice of Christians. You can contact them at 972-580-2000. 972-580-2000. And let's see, their email is pr@scouting.org. pr@scouting.org. Ron in Winter, Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I wanted to say something about this, what I believe is a distorted ideology that this group is using to oppose the Scouts. When they talk about being not inclusive enough, as if it's okay to accept things that are unhealthy, like we shouldn't make distinctions between things that harm us and things that don't. And I just think that that rationale, it's so loud and it blasts us so hard, sometimes we can't get under it and refute it.
Good point. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. The statement that came from the Human Rights Campaign, touting itself as the nation's largest LGBT civil rights group, said with the country moving toward inclusion, the leaders of the Boy Scouts of America have instead sent a message to young people that only some of them are valued. These adults could have taught the next generation of leaders the value of respect, yet they've chosen to teach division and intolerance. Now, they're being very intolerant even with that statement. We have just a half minute remaining. Josh, you have time for a very quick comment here.
All right. Hey, I was just running around work here and talking to everybody else about it, what they thought about the situation here. And one of the coworkers brought up a good point about, they are still people, and as long as they're not involved necessarily, what's the big deal? As long as they're doing their job and they're doing their best.
There is a big deal. It does violate the oath. It's a violation of our human body. Did you know the practice of homosexuality is one that actually shortens a person's lifespan? We're on this big health food kick across the nation. Don't drink a 32-ounce soda, but yet we are promoting a homosexual lifestyle that takes away many years from one's life. And besides, as one other caller pointed out, it's a violation of what God has said in His Word. And after all, that's critically important, isn't it? Our time has gone. Thanks for joining us today here on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.